What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Girl Dating Podcast with two girls and their dad. I am Kanaya. We have Kiani and we have
Hey.
our dad, Marcel. And Kiani's getting ready to tell you about this episode for this week.
So this episode is going to center around our parents. So we're going to talk about my dad, his upbringing, and how that influences his girl dating. And then we're going to swing it over to my mom so she can talk about how her upbringing influenced how she wanted our dad to be a girl dad. And we're going to jump into that. Go ahead, Nai.
So this week we have a very special guest. It is the queen of the Kirk Castle, our mommy and our dad's wife. Go ahead, mom, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ernisha, the mom.
Mom.
All right, guys. So without further ado,
Let's
take it away, Dad.
Well, this episode, we're going to focus on how the seeds were laid in my life for me to become a girl dad. And so we've asked Ernisha, whom we affectionately call Mommy, since Kanaya came, to come and share her experiences growing up and the expectations she may have had for whomever her children's father was. Obviously, that's me now. And just get an idea of what impact her upbringing has on my parenthood. So just a couple of quick biographical facts about myself. Born and raised in Chicago. I grew up when I was born on the east side of the city in the Jackson Park neighborhood. Stayed with my mom and my dad. I have an older sister. My parents split when I was 4. And so my mom took my older sister and me, and we moved into my my grandmother's house. And then a couple of years later, my younger sister came. And so for the first 17, 18 years of my life, I lived in a house dominated by women. My mom, my grandmother, and then my two older sisters. My older sister, my younger sister, lived in the house together. I shared a room with my uncle for a period of time, but my life is surrounded by women. So my grandmother, as I said in the first episode, very instrumental in my life, growing up with my mom, my older sister. So I've always had strong Black women, older women around me. We moved, well, then I went to school. And so coming back from school, started dating, met my wife. We knew each other from some high school days at the same church. Then we started dating, talked about having children, talked about getting married, things of that sort. In reverse, in the other order, I should probably say that. Talked about getting married first and then having kids. Sure, absolutely.
I really would like to say that our conversation about kids was not as extensive as it was about getting married.
Of course not.
It was real like, do you want to have kids? Maybe, guess so, we'll see. I really felt like that was our conversation about kids.
Probably was. I listen. It was so long ago. I have no reason to doubt you. But having those conversations and understanding where I come from, having a grandmother with a very strong personality, having a mother with a very strong personality, having an older sister to whom I looked up, who was my role model, my hero. I wanted to be everything that she was: intelligent, that she was formidable. So she set a very good standard for me. And so having all of those things in my background when I got married and when I had children, those are some of the imprints that my family left on me. And so that really guides and steers the way that I parent. It also has an impact, obviously, on the way I relate to my wife as a spouse. And so those are some of the things we're going to talk about in more detail. And we wanted to bring Ernisha on so, again, she can share her perspective of how I have evolved as a girl dad. And so I'm hopeful this episode will shed some light on the historical impact that our families have on us as we transition from adolescence into young adulthood, eventually into marriage and having a family.
Nice.
All right. So I guess our first question will be, Mom, tell us about your relationship with your dad and how that formed what you wanted out of your kid's father.
Well, I had a pretty basic relationship with my dad. When I say basic, it was pretty much my dad and my mom. Both are from the South, very old school. So a lot of the conversations, communication was very structured, and we didn't talk about everything. So some things I had to learn on my own. Others I got a little bit of a basic from my family, from my mom and from my dad. But one thing about my dad though, he worked all the time and he was very protective of me. So in a lot of ways, I was sheltered about a lot of different things. And so as I got older and got into high school, it's just certain things I just didn't talk to my parents about. So one of the things that I really wanted Marcel to be able to do with you girls is be very open for conversation about anything. I didn't want you guys to be afraid to have a conversation with us, and especially him as your dad, because I knew I probably would force myself on you and be like, okay, let's talk about this, because I didn't get that. And so I spent a lot of time really trying to encourage him to have different conversations or not to be afraid to have certain conversations with you guys as you were growing up and to be involved in your lives, i.e., any activities you were in grammar school, field trips, things like that. It should not always be me doing it as the mom. I wanted him as a dad to be involved. And I just felt like having your dad present would be mean more for you as you got older.
I think that's a good point in terms of presence. As I've said, my mom and my dad split when I was very young. I think I was 4. And so my sisters did not grow up with our father in the house. And so one of the things I wanted to be sure that I gave to my children, whether they were girls or boys, was to have their father in the house with them. And that was one of the things that you and I did talk about before we had children, before we even got married, was the importance of having a 2-parent household, so that one parent did not have the burden of having to do all the things, having to be everywhere, having to make himself or herself available, and splitting time across children. That was important for me because I wanted my children to have something that I didn't have. I also understand, based on some of the things that you shared with me regarding your relationship with your dad growing up, there were some roles that I needed to fill for my children, as you've already mentioned, being there to support them, being there to encourage them, being there to provide discipline while also being compassionate and patient. And so one of the things that I learned from your experience is that I have to be flexible. I have to be diverse. I have to be versatile in parenting, because every situation will not command the same reaction. There has to be some ability on my part to read a situation and then respond with the appropriate measure when I need to be tough and stern, then I need to be tough and stern. When I need to be more compassionate and more laid back and more cuddly, so to speak, then I had to do that. And those are some things I did learn from you based on your experience with your dad. And so understanding that in a marriage, I had to take my cues not only from my daughters in terms of how to respond in a certain situation, but also take my cues from you, because I didn't want them, as you said, to be afraid to come to me. And so part of me had to learn how to open myself for them to bring to me their hurts, their needs, their questions, things of that sort, so we could establish that kind of relationship that would permeate our the next few years that we had together while we were all under the same roof.
And I think it was important for you to have that because in my dad's defense, I didn't participate in a lot of different things. I didn't do anything. And so I was very, I guess, adamant, focused on making sure you girls were involved in different things so that you could have activities outside of home. I didn't do that. And because I knew I was going to do that, I was going to need for your dad to be involved, to be present, to be flexible, and to be encouraging to you guys as well, because I knew what my plan was and just making sure that he was on board with that.
All right, let's make a segue. Let's take you back to 2003 when we got to try all these new things out. So let's talk about when Naya came around and how that changed and how you all were able to meet, quote unquote, meet those expectations and any fears that you maybe weren't meeting those expectations. Let's take it to November, y'all.
So November 6th, Kanaya comes, have a baby, bring her home. I ended up having postpartum depression. So the adjustment of being at home with a newborn, life changing, it was a struggle. One of the things though that Marcel introduced very from the onset, he was like, because he was actually working and I was at home, of course, on maternity leave. So we knew early on, I'm a morning person, he's a night owl. So he was like, okay, you deal with the baby in the early morning hours, but when I get home from work, I'll take the baby, I'll do whatever's needed. And of course, we have family helping us. We had my mom, we had his mom. They were either staying with us or going back and forth. But at the same time, also, my grandmother was passing. So she was ill of health. Any day, she was going to be passing. We really felt that she lived long enough for me, waiting on me to have Kanaya, and then she ended up passing on. So it was a shift for my mom. So she was doing as much as she can for us as well. So Marcel really had to step up. And so I often wondered, while I was dealing with the depression, I could see him trying to make sure I was okay. So he was asking me daily, how are you doing? You know, what's going on in your mind? What's going on with your thoughts? And sometimes I even thought about it. I said, I wonder if he's thinking, you know, man, do my girl have to deal with this later on in life when she has kids? You know, because you want to protect your children from everything. And so I think a lot of times he would ask me how I was doing to make sure he didn't have to come in and be, you know, very protective of the baby, because sometimes with postpartum depression, if you get it serious enough, you can hurt yourself or others. And so I'm sure he was cognizant of that also. I mean, how did you feel?
Well, obviously being a first-time parent, not having gone through having a wife who suffers through postpartum depression, it was obviously new, but for me, the challenge was, okay, I've got to take care of my kid, and whether you have postpartum or not was not going to impact that. I had to take care of my child because my child was my responsibility. You were an added layer in that. And so what that season in our lives made me do was make certain I was prioritizing you two instead of myself. So being a new parent, all of our attention is going to the newborn. But because of your postpartum, I also knew I had to be doubly certain you were in the best space possible. Understanding, having to research a bit about postpartum and trying to come to grips with where your mind was, where your mental state was, and giving you that space to heal, to recover, but also making sure Kanaya's needs were met and making sure, she was being fed, that she was being bathed, that we were keeping her clean, that we were making sure she got the attention she needed as a newborn. And truth be told, that was one of the best seasons of my life because
Really? Wow.
No one needed me more than my daughter and my wife. And for me, as someone whose spiritual gift is one of my spiritual gifts is serving, I get energized. I get energy when people need me.
So let me ask you something. Did you ever, the fact that we had a daughter, did you have different thoughts, or it was just the baby?
No, it was just, I mean, at that point, I mean, I've made no bones about it to my girls. We talked about it in the first episode. I wanted boys. I wanted sons because I've always been surrounded by females. And so I wanted girls. I mean, I wanted boys.
Gotcha.
So, but listen, once we found out Kanaya was a girl, I didn't have, I mean, I had a tinge, just a small, very small tinge of disappointment, but I knew I couldn't change anything about it.
Well, I'll be
So-
honest. I wanted boys because I was a girl.
My God. We're like, my God.
I'm not a girly
It's the
girl.
first time I heard this.
Because if you know, I was not a girly girl growing up. I mean, I was overweight. Everything that I bought looked frumpy. You know, hair, I'm not good at doing hair. I'm not very much into makeup, stuff like that. And so I was like, when I had Kanaya came, they was like, oh, it's a girl. And I was like, is she healthy? Okay. And I was like, man, Lord, now I gotta comb hair. I mean, I was like, Lord, you got jokes.
Okay.
I couldn't foresee myself taking care of a girl, even though I was a girl. I won't lie.
And so the flip side of that is, again, I'm the only son, and on my mother's side, I'm the only grandson, and I have a younger sister, and I have 3 cousins who are female. So I knew how to change diapers. I knew how to prepare formula.
Yes.
I knew how to take care of an infant because I seen my mom do it, I seen my grandmother do it, I seen my aunt do it. So those were things. I mean, obviously, you know, when I was young and changing my younger sister's diapers and things of that sort, I did it because, you know, I liked the baby in the house, and so I didn't mind helping. You know, things kind of changed as she got older, but we won't go into that in this episode. But you know, and then again, when my cousins came around, you know, I didn't mind helping with diapers and formula and things of that sort. So when I had my own kids, those were skills that I already had. And so with your mom not having those skills,
I have none of it.
it was just natural for me to plug in that gap and fill that hole.
That was another reason why I wanted a boy, because I had no experience. I figured because he did, he's a guy, he could take care of a boy quicker than he would be able a girl. Not thinking about the fact that all of his cousins were girls and he's been around girls. I was just thinking of he would be the bigger asset, and being able to take care of a boy would be simple for him. And it'll give me a chance to learn, to grasp, to figure stuff out. But of course, the Lord had jokes.
So, you know, me sensing the need, again, it energized me. And so my prayer every day was, Lord, just let her get through until 5 o'clock or 5:30, whenever I got home, because I knew then
Yeah.
I'm going to take Kanaya. I'm going to do everything with Kanaya. I'll feed her, I'll bathe her, I'll hold her, I'll get her to go to sleep, settle down until about midnight. And then I'm going to go to sleep. But by that time you were sleeping. And the good thing about you, Kanaya, was, you know, you didn't wake up too often in the middle of the night.
No.
So that was good
Likes
for
my
us.
sleep.
Huh?
I likes my sleep.
So, you know, that was good for us. And whether you had been a boy or a girl, I would have done the same thing. But because you are a girl, that helped you and me bond. And so
Yes.
having that relationship since you came out the womb was very important.
Which began the whole bath towel in the dryer. So your dad, when he would give you a bath, he would put your big towel in the dryer. And so he would give you a bath. So I'm literally trying to lay down, get some sleep. Then he would go out. And then the first time he did it, I didn't say anything. But about the second or third, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, my baby got to have a warm bath towel to wrap in.
Oh no.
And
Listen.
so I said, oh my God, these girls, I said, she gonna be so spoiled. Oh,
And I am. which
Mhm.
we'll get into in a later episode, y'all.
Every time, and I did notice, like sometimes when I would bathe you, you had this look like
Where's the warm towel?
with a warm towel. And I said, that's your daddy. That ain't me. That's your poppy. Don't look at me for that. And so as it went on, I made sure that I didn't do it because that meant that it was a special moment between the two of you. And I
No,
was
you
like,
could have done it. You could have done it. I
no,
wouldn't have been mad about it.
No.
And I'm sure Kanaya would not have been mad about it either.
to me, it was time. You gotta go all the way downstairs, put the towel in dry, then come up and bathe. You make sure you good. Then I gotta go back downstairs and get the towel, bring the towel. I'm probably doing 7 other things at the same time. So I just let that be his special.
It's gonna be.
But I knew then, I said, oh, she's gonna be so spoiled. Oh my gosh. So I knew then, I was like, okay, he's gonna be a great dad for this little girl.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to Kiani.
Yeah, let's talk about the big Kiki of 07 since we got jokes. We don't want no girls. Like, my
Like we got 2 pairs of
God.
them.
My goodness.
So, because both times we made the choice not to know what the sex of the baby was.
And that's not true. We got the ultrasound for
You
Kiani.
right. We did. We found out for Kiani. And the reason was that is if we had to have, you know, clothes and all of that for a boy, we were going to have a shower, all that stuff. But because you were a girl, we had kept a lot of Kanaya's stuff because we were blessed with so much stuff. A lot of the things we had were brand new, hadn't been used, but we saved it because I knew I didn't want to have just one child. I knew that. So when Kiani came, it was yet another girl. I was like, Lord, oh, another head to comb. Oh my God.
I have more hair on my head than Kaya does. So
Still to this day.
to this day.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that, again, you know, having some experience, I understood the basics of braiding hair. Obviously, I am not a cosmetologist, and so no one's banging down my door asking me to do their hair. But
We can start.
I'm sorry?
We can start. Listen,
No, that's not my ministry.
okay. I love it. Okay.
Oh man.
But you know, I understood the basics of washing hair, drying hair, brushing hair, combing hair, doing braids, putting on barrettes. So my job was always just to make you halfway presentable to the public. And so
you did pretty good. One of my favorite baby pictures. You put the pink barrettes in my hair. We had picture day. It's pretty fire.
About a couple weeks ago when I washed my hair, he helped me blow dry my hair. That's that. See, you know what you're doing.
Oh yeah, he's not
right. So one of the things, you know, I've learned how the Lord uses all of our experiences to get us to a certain point. So I mean, I had to make the most out of being surrounded by women, you know, as I grew up. And that's just one of those advantages.
And thank God, because I ended up with postpartum again after Kiani was born. Kind of knew more the second time around. So I moved differently. I did things differently. But by your dad being familiar with your sister, combing hair, stuff like that, he could step right in with Kiani. He didn't have a problem shampooing her hair, brushing your hair, stuff like that, which helped me tremendously because he was so engaged with you girls. So
and you got warm towel too, by the way.
You did too. Yes, you did too. Both of you were getting them then. I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous now. But okay. I'm like, the oldest one don't have to have a warm towel. Just tell her to get out the shower. We could dry her out. He was like, no, both my girls. Oh my gosh.
Both of them getting warm towels.
Spoiled. Mm-hmm. But hey,
yes.
Okay.
We love that for us.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how fatherhood changed as we got older. For you, Poppy, what that was like, and Mom, kind of like watching those changes. And then on the back end, tell us about how you think he's doing, Mom, now that I'm 20 and I'm out of the house and Kiani's 16 and she has like a year and a half left. So, you know, go from like growing up to kind of where we are today.
Well, for me, you know, understanding the necessity that I placed on my children having their father in the household with them, I wanted to as your mom sort of alluded to a few seconds ago, I wanted to be sure I had a unique bond with both of you that she didn't have. So obviously she has the responsibility of carrying you in the womb for those 9 months. And so everything that you're getting from the time of conception throughout that gestation period comes from her. And so one of the things I did want to make sure I prioritize during her pregnancies was to be on my best behavior, so to speak, because I didn't want her mood or her disposition to be foul, because that might impact something during the pregnancy. So I tried to be on my absolute best behavior.
Good job.
I wasn't successful 100% of the time, but it was something that I was cognizant of. So I wanted to be sure, you know, when she needed something, I was responsive. I wanted to be sure to encourage her to eat. And so since I do the cooking, most of the cooking in the house, I wanted to be sure she was getting healthy meals. I wanted to encourage her to exercise. Since she already liked to exercise before she was pregnant, I wanted her to keep that up because I knew there would be benefits for you two as she carried you. So once you all came out, now I felt like I could be much more hands-on with you, because obviously when you weren't born, I couldn't do that. So I wanted you all to feel my presence, to feel my person. I wanted you all to hear my voice. And so you would establish a comfort level with me as I established that same comfort level with you. And so as you all began to grow and go from crawling to walking, go from walking to running, where you now, as you got older and older, now you're starting to drive, and we'll get into that later. What I wanted to do was make sure you all, as you all changed, as you all grew, that you understood my presence was still available to you. And so I had to then adjust my own parenting, because I couldn't treat you when you were 2, I couldn't treat you like you were 6 months old. When you became 5, I couldn't treat you like you were 3, things of that sort. So as you grew, I grew as well. As you began to adjust to different stages in your lives, I adjusted to those same stages in my own parenthood. And so understanding I could not remain a static parent, but I had to be dynamic because you were changing, really has helped me accept the fact that you all are not babies anymore, that you all are young adult women, and you're going to continue to grow as you mature and get older. So my focus was always recognizing where you are, but helping guide you to where you needed to be. And while doing that, making sure that you all understood my presence was still valuable to you, and your presence was valuable to me.
And I think as the girls started getting older, grammar school, and I started putting you guys in activities, your dad would say, you know, just let me know where I'm supposed to be. So a lot of the activities I put you guys in, I did, because I didn't know what else to put you in. And so I got you guys involved in dance, because a good friend of mine told me about a dance studio. So I got you both involved. So of course, every year there was a big recital. So he would just say to me, just tell me where they need to be, when activities were, things of that nature. So that's what I would do. And so I would just make sure that he was, you know, he knew exactly where. He would show up, he would be very present. He would sometimes, in the course of you guys preparing for different things, he would ask you how you were doing. He would ask you, how's it going? 2 different occasions I think that really stands out for me is when Kanaya, when you got promoted from 6th to 7th grade after just a month and a half of school. And your dad was like, okay, if your teacher thinks you're ready, we think you're ready. And so your dad kicked right into advocacy mode. He started, you know, we need to have a meeting so that we can get her what she needs. Even in the meeting, he ran the meeting on our behalf. I didn't have to say a word because your dad was your advocate. He's like, my daughter is exceptional. She is learning. You have recognized that. You want to promote her. Don't hold her back because the school has never done this before. So in that instance, he was an advocate. When Kiani got ready and started testing to do academic 6th and 7th and 8th grade academic center, and we got her tested. And so when she tested, She was kind of frustrated in testing. And so your dad was like, listen, Kiani, do the best you can. But if you do well enough to get placed, that's where you're going to go, because you are intelligent, you are smart, you can learn and grasp, you need to be challenged. So he became an advocate for her in that time period. And so when it came to different momentous occasions for you guys, your dad would jump into advocacy mode, which I love, because then I can take a step back and just take a breath and not feel like I'm all alone and thinking, okay, well, should we do this? Should we not do that? And when I would mention it to him, he'd be like, okay, well, look, what do you need me to do? And then sometimes he would just jump right in and start going. I think when you, Kanaya, got closer to graduating from high school, Kiani getting closer to high school, but in a high school environment, I could see where your dad was stepping up his communication level, his honesty, his openness. When you're kids, you're honest, but I used to tell them, okay, you got to be a little soft with the honesty, because you guys weren't ready for true, blatant honesty. Your dad could be very blunt and honest. And so
He's not alone. He's not alone.
Naya does it too. Kiani is more like me. We kind of look for a way to be honest, but to gauge the person and how
Yes.
the best way. Your dad's not like that. And so just trying to get him to understand, as you guys were getting older, I was like, you can be honest, but you got to figure out the best way to do it. And I think now he's learned that, because you and I are so much like him, he just can be just as honest as he can be with you. Kiani is more like me. So he realizes that he has to figure out the best way to be honest, even though sometimes he can miss the mark, but thank God for his effort. So Kiani will be like, okay. And so I see him now when he has conversations with you guys, when he spends time with you both, he's trying to engage and figure out where you are. We had a really close friend tell us, tell your dad, you're making it real hard for guys in the future to date your daughters. And your dad said, I did that on purpose, because I wanted my girls to know what a good man will and how he should treat you. And so your dad has been very adamant in showing you both what a good man looks like, acts like, all of the above.
And one of the things, I need to credit you for in our marriage, and how you have helped me be a decent girl dad.
What's that?
One of the things that I learned early in our marriage is, my weaknesses as a husband. And so some of the deficiencies I have as a husband motivated me to be that much better of a father. One of the struggles that we had, and maybe we still have it in some degree, is communication. You didn't think I was communicating well enough with you. You didn't think I was communicating often enough with you. And so while I wanted a reset with you, obviously I couldn't get it. I transferred that energy to my parenting. And so I wanted to overemphasize good communication with my girls, because I know I didn't meet the mark that you had for me in our marriage. And so when the mistakes that I've made as a husband, I tried not to make similar mistakes as a father. And so, Kiani, you talk about how you get the benefit of, our mistakes with Kanaya. Well, both of you have gotten the benefits of my mistakes with your mom. And so while there may be some times where we're not on the same page, I make sure that I double that effort with you all, because I'm learning how those communication mistakes with her impacted our relationship. So I knew, okay, things I don't do with your mom, I need to do with you, because I have a different level of interaction with you guys. And so I don't like there to be guesswork in communication. That's why I'm blunt. And that's why I try to say exactly what's on my mind, so you don't have to figure out what I'm thinking. But I also understand I failed in those respects a lot of times with your mom. And so while I'm still learning those things because we're equals, because I have a relationship of authority over you all, then I don't have to be as hesitant or as apprehensive in my communication with you all. Now, as she said, I had to learn how to temper those things, particularly with Kiani. But that also goes to understanding how you two are different, and what may work with one may not work with the other, and what may not work with one may work with the other. And so understanding, again, your uniquenesses and encouraging your uniquenesses and embracing them was important, because again, as the only male in this 4-person household, I have to relate to each of you 3 ladies in a different manner in order to be effective in my communication.
Now, what I will say I look forward to seeing is how you interact with Kanaya when she gets 21 and gets on her own, and how you interact with Kiani when she goes away to school. I think that's going to be the next shift. How do you interact with an adult who she has to live her own life? And then Kiani letting her go, and at the same time dealing with being an empty nester. So having all the free time in the world, because we don't have to drive one here, one there, and do all the other stuff. So I'm looking forward to that next phase.
Yeah, and part of that will, again, everything I do with Kanaya is going to be the first time.
Right.
True. And so, saying goodbye to her when she went to college was hard, as I knew it would be.
Yes.
And I was unashamed to tell everyone whom I knew, I know I'm going to cry.
You shocked me.
It's going to be a hard cry.
You shocked me too.
When I say, when you started crying and the depth of your crying.
Wait, hold on. First of all, go back.
I had to start dripping. I said, wait.
First of all, go back. This man don't cry in public, okay?
At all.
So understand, we was outside on the concrete.
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening?
You know, just kind of quiet.
And you just started like crying, but you started crying hard. And me and Kiani kind of looked at each other like,
man, I'm like, buddy, snot.
It blew me away. I know how much your dad loves you girls both, and protective and want the best for you. But it was like that day, it was just on his sleeve. And I was like, oh my gosh, is he gonna make it? I thought I was supposed to be the one over here. Oh man.
So it was kind of the reverse of when I took you to school for the first time, and how you didn't want to let me go and you threw this big tantrum. The only thing missing on my part was a tantrum.
Yes.
But I'm certain when Kiani leaves, I'm gonna cry then as well, because Kanaya, you obviously changed my life. Because I never had a kid before. And so the impact you've had is undeniable and irreplaceable. And Kiani, you've changed my life in a different way, because you've made me a different kind of parent than I am with Kanaya. And so, yes, I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss seeing you every day. I'm going to miss having beef with you every day. Those are interactions that right now I'm soaking in as much as I can, because I know in a couple of years I won't have them every day. And then when I get to see you come home for holidays, then we'll have a different level of interaction. So one of the things, and again, my upbringing, my dad didn't live with me. My dad didn't live with my sisters. And so, I wanted to enjoy fatherhood as much as I possibly can. I want to squeeze as much of its life as I can possibly squeeze. And so I'm enjoying these years, because I know they won't last forever. And so whatever I can do, and listen, I don't have riches untold and wealth untold to give to you. But I can give you myself. And that's what I think any father ought to do. And so, when we have those times when we're laughing at each other, not with each other, but at each other, you know, or we're laughing, two of us are laughing at the one other, or when the three of us are laughing at your mother, you know, or even when the three of you are ganging up on me, you know, that's what family is.
Mhm.
And so for us to have the privilege of creating you and nurturing you, and again, I've said all the time, you know, I take care of kids, but I raise adults. You know, I don't raise children. I want you all to become those full-fledged adults who are going to take the world by the horn and just do extraordinary things. And so for me, it's been that kind of ride, and that's why I pour so much of myself into being your fathers, because God has given me that privilege.
I would have to say, when they were younger, I felt like I needed to help you give to my girls what I didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I grew up in a household, my dad was there, you know, but my interaction with my dad was just pretty much father, daughter, ins and outs. We have family events, things like that. But I wanted to make sure that my girls' interaction with their dad was even richer. And
Give an
so,
example.
so like growing up for me, the holidays, they were okay. It was just us. It was just me, my dad, my mom. We might have opened gifts, da 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 da. But once got married with your dad, and then we had you guys, Christmas became such bigger. And then like he would play games with you guys, he would be present with you guys and just interacting with you guys. And I felt like that was great because it was more than our holidays just weren't that big of a deal for me. It just wasn't. And so, but for you guys, it was being made to be such a, and birthdays too. You know, for birthdays, I never had I had one birthday party when I turned 6. That was it. Whereas when your dad's and then his upbringing, they celebrated birthdays every year. And so he was very much so involved in when we did birthday parties for you guys, your dad was involved. He would tell me to figure out where. But then once I told him where, when, and time, he was the one was there helping me set up, pick up, taking care of you guys, going around. If we were at Hollywood Park, he was going around doing games with you guys. I didn't have to do that part. He was playing the games with you guys. So he made sure to be engaged. And so after a while, I realized I don't have to help him do that because he wanted to do that so hard in his heart that he made an effort at all times to be engaged with you guys. So I didn't have to do that with him. Even now, you know, you guys have conversations with him that I find out after the fact. I'm like, well, tell me, you know, but thank God for that. You know, we know both of you girls know if something happened, you call your dad, he's good. Because what people don't realize, most people that know Marcel, he's very calm, he's cool, and he doesn't get upset about much of anything. He may give you a few words and you got to figure out what they mean, but whereas me, I'm going off from the jump about my kids. No, you don't play. And so what people don't know is if any harm is done to you two, he's gonna probably leave before me getting to the fact of hurting somebody because he does not play when it comes to you girls. And so a lot of people don't get that. Like, oh, he probably would never get upset or angry. Oh, yes, he will. Yes, he will. Mess with Yanni or mess with Kanaya, it's a different conversation. And so I hope you both know that your dad will move heaven and earth for both of you, especially when it comes to your safety and your well-being. Especially.
All right. Well, to round out the episode, Kiani and I are going to give something about each of you that we appreciate being our parents, and then you guys can give one of your proudest moments of each of us. And so,
yeah, I can start.
Okay.
Like you kind of mentioned, Poppy, what makes a good parent is the kids, but I just really want to commend you all. I mean, you all are stellar parents. The way you support us and the way you pour into us is just beyond measure. And like, you really can put words to it. I mean, me and Kanaya do different things, but everything we wanted to try and do, you all are always supportive of it. It may not sound like the best thing or the best idea, but you guys are very supportive of it. Like I don't remember a performance where both of our parents weren't in the audience and weren't there. So you all are just always right behind us. And like as a family, we're all very interconnected. And I will say that it starts from you guys, how we see you love on each other and how we see you pour into your marriage and pour into the love you have for each other and for us. Nice.
I would say, I mean, of course, y'all know I don't live in the house anymore, so things mean different things now. I would say for mom, um, just being a stellar example of womanhood for me, that I can learn from what to do and maybe what not to do if you share things that you're like, yeah, that really didn't work for me. Um, being a woman of God for sure, you know, have being multifaceted because she is the engine to this home, y'all. Like we all go because she know where we all supposed to be, who need a gift for somebody's birthday, wedding, baby shower, whatever's going on. So just learning how to, you know, juggle so many different balls at the same time, that definitely came from you. And she get down to the business, y'all. So things get done effectively. Okay, over here. Thank you. I would say for my dad, uh, always, you know, making home for me. I, you know, living away from my family now, it strengthens me to know that with any failure, I always have a home that will receive me, and I think that is the most important thing for me right now. Yeah.
So proudest moments, oh gosh. I have so many for you girls. For Kanaya, when you got promoted from 6th to 7th grade, your 8th grade graduation speech, I was so proud. Um, and just when you got accepted into FAMU and your excitement was just unbelievable. And so I was very, very proud of you because you knew what you wanted and you pursued it. And I was so excited for you. And when you got accepted and decided to go 800 miles away and take that adventure, I don't think I would have been able to do that, but you did. And I applaud you for taking that step and doing something that none of us had ever done before, and that's to go that far away from school. Kiani, I was so proud of her. She may not realize this, but when she tested for the 7th and 8th grade program, her first choice she didn't get into. And so she was kind of disappointed. But I just loved how she rallied and just shifted her thought pattern and shifted her mindset and just started going at it and saying, you know, I'm gonna have a great time. You know, I'm just gonna go in and see what I can do. And I applaud her for that. She shifted herself and then she got there and started pursuing her love for acting and the part she got. Um, both performances, even if it was a small performance, but when she got one of the leads, I was very proud of her. I mean, there were times during the whole performance, I couldn't believe it was her. I was like, oh my gosh, she is just doing phenomenal. And so those are just a few of the proudest moments I've had as a parent for both of you guys.
I can't narrow down and pick one proud moment for both of you, because there are just way too many. But I will give a moment that I believe is either is a microcosm or a good picture of the pride and the joy and the delight that I have in the two of you, and it involved the two of you doing something together. So when we went to Punta Cana a couple of years ago, and you all wanted to get on the what was it called? The
parasailing.
Parasailing, yes.
Oh, wow.
That was a moment that I think encapsulates our relationship, because it was something I don't know if I suggested you all do it or you all suggested to me that you wanted to do it. Right. And so I said, go for it. But as I watched the two of you hovering in the air,
yes.
You know, I said, that's something I probably would not have done at that age.
I would not do.
Secondly, I was powerless had something happened, because I was on the shore and you guys were well over into the water. And thoroughly, I admired, your willingness to do what we've encouraged you to do, and that's take calculated risks, and just to watch you two in the air, I'm like, wow, that's neat. And each of you has done that throughout your lifetimes, where you've identified something you wanted to do, or the flip side is your mother and I have identified something we believe you can do, and 99 times out of 100 you've tried.
Right.
And the only thing I've ever asked of you is to try. If you don't try, then you will never know if you can do it, and you won't learn anything about yourself. But if you try and you don't get what you want, at least you'll have a point of reference you can use to help you in something else. And so, yeah, when you all did the parasailing, it was something that just brought a shot of joy to my own heart, because I'm looking at you all excelling as you are ascending. And again, that was just a picture of what I believe you all can do in the years to come.
This was incredible. We got some 5-star parents.
For sure.
So to wrap up the conversation, we want to just say, first off, thanks you to Mom for kind of stopping by and talking to us, and thanks for having a wonderful conversation, of course. And Poppy, of course, rocked the conversation. You all did amazing. So we're going to close out the episode. We thank everyone so much for tuning in. Make sure you all tune back in as we drop more episodes of Girl Dadding. And that's it.
Bye.